Subscribe to this podcast to get exclusive access to the after show Shooting the Breeze.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cool Explorations podcast. Today in studio, we have Tom and Michelle Scarpelli. I am Tony Peters, and I'm going to give them a chance to tell a little bit about themselves. Why don't we start with you, Michelle, and then Tom, you can explain a little bit about yourself as well.
Okay, I'm not even sure where to start. I am a member of the Ludlow Creek Band. I play the keyboards and I do a lot of backing vocals. I do a little bit of lead vocals, but mostly backing vocals. I feel extremely blessed to be part of this adventure because for many years, I wasn't a musician. I played music in high school, and I didn't play any music for years. And then I started tinkering around on the piano, and one song led to 2 songs, led to 10 songs, led to here I am. So it's been a really exciting adventure, and our group of guys they are fantastic friends, they're fantastic musicians, and it's just an amazing experience. I feel very blessed to be part of all of this. So, and we're really excited about where the band is going.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. If I can expand some and give a little bit of my story too. So going way back, coming out of high school, played in several bands. Pretty much I picked up the bass guitar. I play bass, do some backing vocals and some lead vocals. Michelle does some lead vocals too. And I picked up the bass simply because we loved music. We used to gather on the weekends or whenever we could to listen to music, and we wanted to play it. So one of the guys started to learn how to play guitar. So he said, "You need to learn how to play bass." So I started playing bass, I think around 15, 16, 17 years old, was in bands through college. And then, right after college, you have to make a choice. Or you want to do this full time? You want to try to pursue it, or do you want to, be responsible? You get a family, life happens, and you get a job and whatnot. And so really what happened, and it's been a really long story on how the band came together, but going way back into the 1990s, early 2000s, we with families and whatnot, we couldn't play out anymore. You couldn't play till 1 a.m, and it just didn't fit the lifestyle. So we started to have host parties. I was in a band with my brother; he was a drummer, and we would host parties because it gives you a goal to learn some songs. If you don't have a goal, again, you'll be busy with the family, whatever's going on with work, and you don't get together to practice. So you had to have a goal. So we'd get together twice a year for parties, and so we'd have practices to get ready for those parties. Well, as it ends out, we started to meet musicians through, 20 years, and really all of us came together related to those parties over a long period of time. So finally in 2013, we got together. Our drummer at the time said, "Hey, do you want to give this a shot? Do you want to try to take it on the road?" And so we decided, sure, let's do that. We eventually got another member in the band that really rounded us out. And so we've been playing for a long, long time, but together as the 5 of us, it's been since 2013. We started out as a cover band, and we put together an original album. Fans and really good musician friends who we really respect their opinions told us that, hey, your music hangs with all the covers you're doing. And so about the time COVID started, we started working on a second album, which we're finally going to be releasing in the next month or so, hopefully less than a month. It's literally in mastering right now and goes to duplication. So we decided that, hey, we want to pursue original music. We've done covers long enough. God has really blessed us by bringing us together. Like Michelle mentioned, we're very talented. Not all, the talents, of course, come from God, and the creativity. Not all musicians can write music, write lyrics, and just not have the right chemistry, the right bonding to really be able to have their career flourish. We've been extremely blessed, and we've got that mixture, and so we decided that we want to go ahead and try original music. And so far, we're getting really good reviews. We're really excited about it. We're excited about our next album. So we decided, let's do it. Covers are great, but it's a whole new world. So we're in the middle of a transformation, switching gears. We're now Ludlow Creek. So, we had changed our name so we could differentiate ourselves from other cover bands. And I know that was a long answer, but it's been a long process.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And it's so true what you say about the different talents, because it's like, for myself, I write lyrics to music. I don't write the music. So for me, I get a tune in my head and I'll just start writing to it. And then I'm like, well, I can't put that tune onto the paper. So for me,
Right.
I send it. And then when I send it to people, I'm like, just do what you want with it. Make it your own. Tweak it where you need to tweak it to make it fit whatever tune you want it to fit. And I've been learning a lot through that, just through a lot of these interviews I've been doing with musicians, just about that process and stuff. And I've been excited about all the musicians who are like, oh yeah, send me your stuff. Like, I want to hear your stuff. Like, I'm like, well, that's encouraging. And my kids are really excited to listen to some of these, but also some of the musicians have gotten to speak to my kids, and my kids are just like thrilled that they get to speak to these musicians. So I appreciate you guys coming on, and I appreciate what you guys do, because yeah, it's a lot. I know it's a lot of work, and there's a lot that goes into it that's behind the scenes that people don't see.
Right.
And so I appreciate you taking time for this. I would like to hear a bit about each of your testimonies and what God's currently doing in both your lives. And again, we'll start with Michelle, and then Tom, you can kind of fill in with your own testimony.
I was raised in a Christian family. And my parents and both sets of my grandparents and my siblings, we would all go to church together every week. And as I got older and started making my own decisions, I didn't choose going to church every Sunday as one of my priorities. And so for many years, I didn't go to church. And then when our granddaughter came along, I started taking her to church with me because I wanted her to have the same foundation with God in her life as I had. And so through the process of going every week to take her to Sunday school and that type of thing, I got more into going to church and started to want to have a closer relationship with God myself. And so now, I like to volunteer at the church. I like to be involved in what's going on at the church. And I like to do, private worship time. And Tom and I now try to make God a very forefront part of our lives. And, we try to share our faith with our friends as we can. We have prayers before meals with our bandmates, and as time allows, before a gig, we like to gather and say a quick prayer before we perform. And one of the things that I really like is some of our new songs that we're doing. They have messages in them. They're not. What do I want to say? They're not straightforward Christian rock songs, but they have messages in them. And it really gets me excited when I know that we're singing a song that's going to give somebody hope or, a brighter look in their day, or some sort of an inspiration to help that person feel better
Absolutely.
and happy and take that along with them. And personally, I haven't written any songs yet because I think it's just not in me to do that. But there's a lot of things that I would like to say, inspirational things to people. So I'm just waiting for God to give me the words to write those songs that could touch people and bring them closer to God and give them a brighter hope and that type of thing. So
I want to open the invitation to, if you ever are struggling to write words, you can go ahead and Zoom with me, and we can come up with something together. I can help you get those thoughts onto paper if you like.
Okay.
That's an open invitation.
Thank you.
Because I really enjoy writing, and I've been finding it really a blessing to be able to write for a lot of people like you. I've been really, really enjoying it. I was doing one for Miss Freddie yesterday. I don't usually write blues music, but listening to her music and talking to her, I was like, well, like, yeah, like, the artist, and then you can start kind of putting words to it. And I was able to actually come up with something. I was writing till midnight last night. I was in bed at midnight. I'm like, I have an interview in the morning early, so I better get to bed here. But I was like, I was just so inspired by the interview. So that's an open invitation to you. Just shoot me an email if you ever want, and we can
Thank you.
get that onto paper for you.
I truly appreciate that.
So Tom, why don't you share your testimony with us as well now?
Yeah, so it's a very similar story. Born and raised as a Catholic, still a Catholic. And, it's so true what Michelle said. You get really busy with your teenage years and the college and whatnot, and you sort of just drift away a little bit. And I was in the second band, and our drummer asked if we, there was a three-man band, asked if we wanted to go on a retreat. And I said, no. I said, I'll probably do that later, referring to the family, when the kids are, a certain age or whatever. And then just, thought nothing more of it, because I had done the same thing where I wasn't going to church every week and just sort of drifted away a little bit. God was always a part of my life. Prayed daily, prayed nightly, but just, God was secondary, and unfortunately it's one of those things where, you believe when you become an independent teenager that, hey, I got control of my life. Well, no, you really don't have control of your life. You think you do, but you don't. And so then my friend's named Steve, he's a drummer, and he, one day after work, in the parking lot, he said, so it really struck me what you said the other day. He said, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for to get back with God? And he talked about how inspired he was, when he would go to church, and how it recharged his batteries. And every day it seemed like, the pastor was speaking directly to him, in the homilies, and he said, you really need it. I mean, it just would be so empty if you don't have that. So I started going back, and my gosh, he was right. And it really started to pull me in closer and closer. And, as of late, like Michelle mentioned, we are becoming more active in the church. We're volunteering with, various programs to help the poor. And just, to do more than just have faith, but to act on our faith. And like she mentioned, in our music on the first album, there's songs that have really good messages. In our second album, which is going to be coming out soon, there's several songs on there. Again, they're not quote unquote overtly Christian, but it has that Christian message, the message of love and whatnot. I don't know if you heard our single, "What About Love," that we released.
Yeah.
But that one is definitely in line with what Michelle was saying, as far as, talking about love and what truly matters. And so we're starting to gravitate more and more towards that, because it's important to all of us. And we all share that. Like she said, we try to pray before rehearsals, that God will bless us with, creativity, and that we can use his talents to serve, his people and to bring more people toward him. And we also try our best, like she said, before actual shows. Sometimes it's so hectic with a change out that you just don't have time to gather, and because you're setting your equipment up and you got to go. And so we'll try at least for 5 seconds, to gather in a quick little huddle, say a quick prayer, and then play. And it seems like that always helps to ground us, helps us to center us. And as of late, I would say more and more we've had people come up to us after a show and said, you guys are exactly what I needed tonight. I have XYZ going on at home, and your music is a great distraction to feel good, and various comments like that. And that's really heartwarming, and it really connects with us and makes us feel that we are doing, God's work, that while we're not out there, quote unquote, preaching to people necessarily, we're providing some joy into their life. We're providing them, a distraction from, what's going on in the world, and helping them to connect, and that fellowship when people go to concerts and whatnot, that music tying people together. So we're really starting to tune into that, and we really enjoy it. So, like Michelle said, the more you pray and the more you're associated with church, the more God pulls you forward to help you in that transformation that we're all trying to get to, our ultimate goal. And that is, in communion with Jesus in heaven. So it's been really fun the last few years. And the music's just a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and God gives everybody their own talents, and
yeah,
music is your talent. So it's important that you're using that and tapping into that, because it's so important that we all use our gifts that God has given us.
Yep.
You did mention that your band changed names, that you were Southbound before, and now you're Ludlow Creek. What kind of brought about that change in the name from Southbound to Ludlow Creek?
You want to answer that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, we found that there are probably hundreds of bands called Southbound. A lot of Southern rock bands are called Southbound. Mm-hmm. And there were a couple times there was some confusion because there were other local bands called Southbound as well. And there was a little bit of confusion on things. And so we decided that we wanted to, because Southbound was our cover band name, when we decided that we wanted to do originals, mm-hmm. that we would just completely cut from the old band, come up with a new name that was unique, that we didn't have to worry about any confusion on the name. And so we chose Ludlow Creek, and it has local ties to this area. Ludlow Creek does. So we thought that was a nice, catchy name that kind of hooked us to this area. So it's kind of a fresh new start with a new name, the new what do I want to say? Direction. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah. So.
And I think that is wonderful. How did your band, like your group of people, how did you all meet and kind of come together to form Southbound and then Ludlow Creek?
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, we had these parties just to keep active. We all had, families and lives and whatnot. We couldn't really go out and play these late night gigs and spend all the time rehearsing, if you want to really be up on your game. And so, going way back, our first, so Michelle and I obviously married. As she mentioned, we were playing some parties and, hey, we wanted to do this song from Pink Floyd and we need keyboards in it to really do it right. And I knew that she played around a little bit on the piano and what have you. And she played flute in high school. And so anyway, so we asked, would you be willing to learn that part and play a song or two? And she did, and people loved it. And then, the next party, it was 3 or 4 songs. And so eventually she was just part of the group of guys that we formed to play these parties. So after a while, and so the drummer was my brother. He got in the old band, yeah. And so he got married and had started a family. He couldn't play one of the parties. He said, "Guys, I just, with what's going on right now, I can't do it." So another bass player friend of mine suggested somebody, that's Jeff Friend, who's our current drummer. And so Jeff came in and started playing, and of course we all hit it off great. Interestingly enough, we actually had two drummers for a little while, but then my brother, he just could not continue playing. Going back earlier, my brother used to host some of these parties, and his friend, his best man actually, said, "Hey, I've got this buddy of mine who used to play guitar in a band, and you mind if I bring him to the party?" He came over to the party. His name's Alan Seals. He's our guitarist today. And he started playing, and boom, he just had that magic. We hit it off. So that's how Jeff and Alan came in. Alan came in first. I sort of went backwards in the story. And Jeff came in later.
You confused even me, and I know the story.
And so I'm good at doing that. And so Jeff was in a band that was gigging, and their lead singer just up and left. I mean, just said, "I'm out of town, see ya." They had two gigs and they wanted to play. And so he asked Michelle and Alan and myself, "Hey, do you guys want to take this on the road?"
And cover those bookings.
Yeah, cover those two bookings for us. And we did it. We enjoyed it. And then he said, "You want to make this official, pick out a band name, et cetera, et cetera." And so it was just the four of us. We thought, let's give it a try. So in parallel to that, I'm at work one day, and there's a guy, Dave Benson, who's our other guitarist and vocalist, and he's talking about music to somebody. And so I stopped him in the hallway. I'll give him the short version.
Okay.
I stopped him in the hallway and started asking some questions about it. And I said, "Hey, we got this party coming up in a few weeks. Do you want to come over?" And he doesn't usually do that. I usually don't stop people in the hallway and, and ask them about stuff, but it just intrigued me what he was saying. He came over to one of our parties, he and his wife, and I really enjoyed it. We played, a few songs together because we always have a jam session. Because part of what we always do at our parties, and we still have these parties today, is to get all these musicians together and see what bands might germinate. If people hit it off, a bass player here, a drummer there, and hey, let's put this together. And so he and his wife left that night, and his wife was saying, "Well, you need to get in a band with those guys, And after everybody left, Michelle and I were talking that night separately. It's like, wow, it'd be really cool if Dave was available to join our band. I think he'd be perfect. And so sure enough, we talked to him about it, and a few months later, he came over, and that was, I think, late February of 2013, and we had an initial rehearsal together. And just, we all hit it off. Yeah. And here we are, all these years later. And like Michelle said, the whole Ludlow Creek thing, we specifically chose Southbound because I particularly always thought with a cover band, it's really nice with the name of the band to know, hey, this is the kind of music I'm going to get when I go to see them. So we, in this area, Southern rock is really popular, and classic rock, and we just decided to use the name Southbound. Well, later we come to find out that, there are many.
Everybody else had the same name.
Yeah, and national acts. Bands have been together for 25, 30 years with that name that have released albums. It might be pure country, or, some might be Southern rock, some might be, heavy metal. And it just was extremely confusing to our fans. When we released our first album, which we just re-released as Ludlow Creek, but we released that first album, and on Apple Music it'd say other songs by Southbound, and our other albums by South, and it had nothing to do with us.
Yeah,
like she mentioned, we got other people calling us for bookings, so it just got really confusing. And then also, Southbound really worked great as a name for a cover band identifying you as Southern rock, but it worked too well, and we thought, we really need to come up with this other name. And it's like she said, that's what we came up with, Ludlow Creek. And so far we're getting, good responses to that name. So we're glad we chose it.
Yeah, well, it's very unique, and that's what I like about that name. And because it's got the local ties, I think that's really, really cool that you're able to tie something from your local area into there.
Mhm.
I did enjoy your song "What About Love" that you'd mentioned earlier. What inspired this song, and can you tell us a little bit about what that song's about?
Sure. Do you want me to, or do you want to go for it?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
You can go.
I don't want to do a little talking, so. But basically, Jeff Friend, our drummer, wrote the song, and he said basically what had happened was a musician that he used to play with posted some things on Facebook or whatever, and he said it just was ridiculous, that here they are friends or whatever, and it ended up where they really couldn't talk about it, just not infuriated, but just really upset each other. So he said he went out and walked the dog. He just had to clear his mind, walking the dog, and it just wouldn't go away from him. And the chorus came into his head. What about love? What about peace, love, and understanding? And it just struck him, and so he went right home and he wrote the verses for it, because it's so true. We should all be able to practice true love, unconditional love, and listen to what other people have to say. Free speech. You might not like what someone has to say, but I'll defend their right to say it, because that's just the nature of our country. And I believe that's the way Jesus wants it as well, is that we all have free will, and he tries to win your heart over, but he's not going to force you to do anything. And it's the same thing today, and I think that's what Jeff was feeling, is that can't we just talk about things, and we might disagree, but we still love each other, and we still want to get along. And unfortunately, it's become very divisive. And this, of course, these comments were made, and he wrote the song going into the 2020 election, where things were just extremely divisive. And so it's a message that I think resonates. I think a lot of people feel that way. We've gotten a lot of compliments on the song about it being inspiring and whatnot. And it's just really I think what this country needs right now is for people to follow that kind of a message.
Yeah, and sadly, you don't see a lot of that in today's society. You see that
Right.
division, like you say, and people aren't willing to have a discussion. I know I had recently just got unbanned from Twitter, and I had been banned because I declared that we were born male or female. And I have a biology major. I understand biology. That was my major in high school. I really enjoyed biology, and so I'm like, I can debate biology with you all day long if you want. But this person didn't want that. They just were cursing and swearing at me, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to respond as long as you're cursing and swearing at me. And so they just went and they like dropped F-bomb this, F-bomb that, and I'm just like, really, is that necessary? You can try and get your point across without that, and it would be a lot more powerful than that. So once he was done his thing, I just responded, as much hate, you can do as much hate as you want, but at the end of the day, just know that you are loved. And there was no more response after that. And I'm just like, I was open to conversation. Like, I just didn't want the cursing and swearing. And sadly, that's how society is turned now. Is you either have my opinion or you can't have an opinion. And that's not the way to go about. That's not how our Canada or the US was founded. It was founded on discussion, and we'd always been able to have that. And now you really do not see that, even in the political top parts of politics in our parliament and your Senate there's not really a discussion that happens. It's my way, your way, no middle ground. We're not compromising.
Right. And it's as if they're just trying to force their will upon the others. And, one thing my dad always told me was, throughout history, it's shown that the oppressed become the oppressors. And, it's really sad, but when you do look back, that happens oftentimes. That's, one of the things that Martin Luther King, we have to rise up. We have to be better than that. And it's not about retribution and striking back, but it's about, loving back and, moving forward. And that's what's important. All too often, I think people want to be vindictive or vengeful, or like I said, once they got power, oh, I'm going to force my opinion. And, to your point, so much can be done if people just look to compromise. And if we had, leadership in both countries that could inspire, it's really simple what needs to be done, but it's not easy. And so, we vote for these people to get into office. And what we want them to do is to actually lead. And leadership is difficult. And so what we want them to do is to bring everybody together, make sure opinions are represented, and there's compromise. And compromise moves us forward. But, the infighting that's going on, be it left or right, it doesn't help. It's about dialogue, it's about discussion. And I think that's what, we in the band, we try to stay out of politics, and that's probably as deep as I'll go, because, in our songs and whatnot, we're not advocating a left or a right side, but we're advocating, love, understanding, the Christian way. And I think all that I just said with the leadership and whatnot, we're looking for people to lead and to bring us together. And I think that's important.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times I end up taking flack because I try to see both sides. And I'm like, both sides are flawed.
Absolutely.
There's flaws in everybody. I'm flawed. You're flawed. Everybody has flaws.
Yep.
And being able to admit that you have flaws, that's the problem for a lot of people, is they don't want to see that I could be wrong.
Right.
And it's like, no, if people want to correct me and they have good evidence to back up what they're saying, you might change my mind on something. Like, it's
I'll listen. Right.
Yeah. And I have had that even in the first interview I did with Kathy Flett. She changed my mind on viewing hurdles in life as blessings, because they are blessings in disguise, and we don't see it at the time that we're going through it. But afterwards, we can look back and be like, oh, yeah, that was a blessing. Like, God really changed me through that and opened doors through that.
Well, and what's key to that, because I agree with you, what's key to that is, to be open to viewing it from that perspective, because right, wrong, or different, things happen in our lives that we can't control. And what we can control is our reaction to it. So, what can you learn from it? How can you grow from whatever situation happens? It's an opportunity. It may be something that's negative, but it's an opportunity to grow. It's an invitation to grow. And, making the right choices. If you look back in your life, for us, I think some of the biggest things where we actually grew and becoming the people that we are today, and hopefully transform and grow to be even, better people, happen through adversity. When bad things happen, quote unquote, but it's to be able to recognize that, we have to make that choice. We have to really prayerfully consider what's going on and, how I can react. I could be really negative, or I could try to, respond and be a better person because of it. So I agree with you.
Yeah, and prayer is the key part of that too.
Yeah.
And I've learned not to react like the keyboard warriors, because those people they kind of drive me nuts. Like, did you really think about what you were saying and the way that might affect somebody else? But technology has made it so much so you can just type whatever you want to type, and you don't see their reaction. You don't see how it's affecting them. And you just, as Christians, we can't be like that. We need to sit back and think, how is what I'm saying and typing going to affect somebody else's life?
Yeah.
And if you pray, God will direct you, and you won't respond out of anger and hate, because that used to be my knee-jerk reaction, was to be like, oh, I'm going to get angry about this. Now I sit back and I'm like, okay, let's think about this logically. Is it really worth getting upset about? And would God want me to be upset about this?
Yeah.
And most of the times the answer is no, it's not worth
Right.
getting upset about. There are some things that, we shouldn't back down on, but we can argue that in a position of love without
Oh,
getting angry.
exactly. And yeah, I think both of us couldn't agree with you more. And that's what, sort of going back to what about love? That's what the world needs more of, to really practice true love and understanding, is what God's calling us to do. And we just need more of that. We need to get back to some of the basics. One of the things Michelle and I have talked about, is that, I used to get really upset, she knows, with politics and whatnot, and all the stuff like you've been talking about from both sides, just, and I try to see both sides.
Yeah.
And, come to realizing that, really what it's all about is individual salvation. It's about individuals becoming closer to God, because if each individual has that foundation and can actually practice love, a lot of these problems, all the political bickering would go away. Again, we're flawed as humans, right? So people are going to make mistakes and whatnot. So we're not going to have heaven on earth, but we'll be able to move in a more positive direction. But I used to always be concerned about politics, but now I realize it's really about, everyone's individual relationship with God. And if we can somehow, whether through this podcast or through our music, influence people to consider, Jesus's message, the world will be a better place. And again, I think What About Love is pretty much saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I feel that same theme going through with your music video, which I really loved this music video you guys did for Stoney, Lonesome Road. I absolutely loved that music video. It was amazing, very well done. Can you tell us a little bit about that song and how that music video came about?
Well, we have a friend, excuse me, who writes lyrics, who writes fantastic lyrics, actually. And Stoney Lonesome Road is the story of his father's, where his father grew up. His father grew up on Stoney Lonesome Road in Virginia.
I believe it was West Virginia.
West Virginia. So it's a story that Ray wrote about his father's life and how his life progressed at Stoney Lonesome Road. And as you can see in the video, when his father got older, he was bound to a wheelchair. So it's how he would sit at the window and remember his life on Stoney Lonesome Road. So when Ray had written the lyrics, and Jeff had created the music to go along with the lyrics, and when Jeff presented it to us, we all just fell in love with the song. And Ray is a professional videographer.
Mm-hmm.
So he created the video for us and recorded it. He and his son Eric from Monell Communications.
Yeah, it was very touching. I loved that.
Yeah.
That you could just see that, and I love, that's what I like about a lot of folk and country music is that it tells a story. And maybe that's the author coming out of me. It's just I love to tell a story. So I love to hear that in music. And some of my favorite songs just have that story. And I felt that in that song and in that music video. So that's why I specifically asked about that one, is because I absolutely love the story you could feel coming through in that song.
You can feel the emotion in it. And I love it too because of that.
Yeah.
It really grips your heart.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. And again, goes with that love thing that we were talking about, that we need more of. That people just need to realize family, like politics is a side thing.
Right.
God and family, that's at the forefront.
Yep.
And we need to really realize that and just step back and just reprioritize what's really important. And with that song, I kind of felt that, like, you know, family is important. And that's the memories that you're going to create. And you see that through the music video, like the memories I'm going to create with my kids. What do I want them to remember? And politics is not what you want them to remember. You want them to remember the times you spent with them.
Yep.
And that's why, you know, my son's got me playing Pokemon Go. I had quit for a number of years. That's where you go around and you hunt these little Pokemon creatures around. You walk, do a whole bunch of walking. My son told me the other day, he's like, Dad, I'm so glad you're back into this, because, you know, I just really enjoy getting to walk around with you. And I was just like, okay, like, I don't usually spend money on app games, but I'm like, when he said that, I'm like, you know, I'm okay spending a little bit of money on this game, because it's given me time to connect with my son, and he's really appreciating it. And he's got some really serious health issues going on right now. And so it's like, I just really appreciate that time that I'm getting to spend with him. It's just, it almost brings me to tears just thinking about that. And that's what the music video did for me, was made me think of like my son and the time I'm spending with him. So thank you guys for having that song and putting out that music video, because it really did, it touched my heart that way. And if it touched my heart, I'm sure it's touching other people's hearts.
Thank you.
Thanks for, you know, that story, because that's what we're trying to do. And it's nice to know that, you know, it really is touching people, and it's working. So thank you.
Yeah, and it is. And a question you might get asked a lot, but what's it like singing in a band with your spouse?
Why don't you go first?
Oh gosh.
Let me go first.
Yes.
It's just the most natural thing that, you know, they could be, you know. You've heard the cliche, you know, my wife's my best friend. And, you know, we're best friends. We've been best friends forever. And so we like to do everything together, and playing music together is just a natural thing. So I really enjoy it. It's a blessing. Again, it's just another blessing where, you know, the two of us have so many things in common that attracted us to each other, music being one of them. And it's just fun. You know, we get together and have these creation sessions with the whole band. And so coming out on the third album is a song that, you know, Michelle actually started. We had gotten together, and she started playing the keyboards, and both the guitarist and I started following her on bass, and a song comes out of it. Jeff had some lyrics sitting around, and he started singing lyrics to it, and, you know, a song is developed that's going to be on the third album. You know, to do that with your spouse, I mean, first of all, to do that with a group of people is just incredible. And again, we feel just so blessed to have that experience. But yeah, with your spouse, it's just, you know, it's hard to describe, you know, how good that feels, because you're sharing more than a hobby. I mean, music, it's right. I don't know. It's just, I always have a song in my head. It's just, ever since I was a kid, I think you've been the same way. Some people, music's like an afterthought. For me, it's integral to my life, you know. And I think it's, you know, right after God, it's one of the blessings that God gave us, that, you know, music can draw all of us together, whether it's, you know, through the lyrics or just through the actual music itself. And so, yeah, with your spouse, it's just hard to describe. I mean, it's extremely fun.
It is.
Enjoy it. I don't know. I guess you have the same thoughts, I assume.
No, not at all. Yes, it really is. It really is special. You know, it's, I don't know. I don't know how to say anything more than you said. That it's awesome.
Well, and music is a blessing that brings everybody together. It's been around. They were Adam's children. They created the lyre right away, as well as brass instruments. Like, they created all these instruments pretty early on in their career, in the creation of the world. And that just tells you that it's a gift that God has given us that it would happen so early on. And it's just one of those forms that are just an amazing form of praying and having communion with God. Basically, you're fellowshipping with him, you're worshiping him through your music, and you're helping other people do the same. And that's one thing I like about writing, is that it's just the same kind of thing. And when you can hear it turned into music, that's why when a lot of these artists that I work with now are like, well, yeah, send me your music. I'm just like, yeah, it's just amazing that I'm going to get to hear my words put into a song. Like, it's actually going to be something I can hear played back, because music, like you say, is an integral part of my life too. Like, I love listening to music. I always have music on, and I have a lot of memories where a song will trigger that memory. And I usually remember when I first heard a song. I can remember what I was doing. And my memory is terrible, but for some reason with music, it helps my memory. So I completely understand what you're saying.
I think we're the same way. You know, there's songs that I'll hear on the radio, and it'll bring me right back to 1973, you know, and literally, if I didn't see anything modern around me, I would feel that is the time period that I'm in. And so one of the things we've talked about is, we hope with our music that we create new memories for people. It's one of the things that intrigued us about our original music, is that we like to do the same thing that other artists did for us when we were growing up, by having music out there that could, as they create new memories going forward in life, it's tied together with our music. And if we can do that, then that's unbelievable, and again, God's given us that opportunity, and we're trying our best to utilize that opportunity.
So where can people go to find your music online, or where can they purchase it?
Yeah, so we have a website. It's www.ludlowcreek.com. And we're also on Facebook, which is just the Facebook.com/Ludlow Creek. So those are the two best avenues. But we're on Spotify, all the major streaming or download places. I think Amazon Music and all those were available to purchase the current CD. We mentioned that the new CD, it's literally just got an email last night. We're finished with the mixing. It's being mastered. The artwork is being finished for the album. And so in the next few weeks, we'll be, to a month or whatever, we'll be, working with Michael at MTS Management, who is, again, like I mentioned before we got started here, is a blessing to us. And he'll be working to promote that next album and the steps we should go through to release it. And that'll also be available, excuse me, in the same places. So,
Right.
Yeah.
You can also find the Stoney Lonesome road video on YouTube.
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
on our page, you can link to it.
Yep, that's right.
So I always leave off with this question for people. But what's one piece of advice that you would leave for young Christian musicians out there? What advice would you be giving them? I know it's a tough question.
It is a tough question. If you have an answer, go ahead.
I think, like we've talked about in this conversation, pray and follow your heart. Listen to what God is telling you through the music you create. But you need to stick with it. Even though you've got these, at least here's what I've found. Even though God's given me these talents, I spend a lot of time rehearsing, probably not as much as, some people do, but, I really need to keep up with it and, spend the time, honing your craft. And I've found that when I'm rehearsing or in practice, doing my personal practice, that's when music comes out. I mean, I'll literally sometimes pick up my bass guitar, and there's a song coming up on the next album where I don't know, I just started playing, and it's like, oh wow, I grabbed my phone and started recording it. So, pray, and continue to practice, because even though God's giving you this talent, you need to do something with it. You need to keep exercising it. And I think things will naturally flow from there. I don't know what your thoughts are for advice.
I don't know either. Except, maybe I would say that, if you have the talent and you feel it in your heart that you want to perform, it's never too late.
Yeah.
I didn't do this until I was much older, and don't be afraid if you're later in life and you feel the calling to do it, just go and try it. Because there's a reason that message is in you trying to get out. God's put it there, and He wants you to share that message. So I just say,
No, I think that's great.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for coming on the Cool Expressions podcast. I have really enjoyed this chat, and we'll have to have you back on after your next CD is complete, and when it's released, we'll have to have you back on at that point, because it's exciting when you get to see that all come to fruition.
Yeah, and we'd love to hear what you think about the next album too.
For sure.
Yeah.
Surely.
Awesome. Well,
And
thanks again for coming on. And
thank you so much for interviewing us and putting, letting us share our stories. And we really appreciate it.
it was my pleasure.
And we'll be praying for your son. We hope,
Thank you. Yeah, he could really use it right now. He's struggling. So yeah, thank you. Well, I have just been blessed with so many people who are requesting to be on the show, and I'm impressed with how many people want to share their testimonies or what they're doing for the Lord right now. If I haven't got back to you, I promise I will get back to you. I look forward to speaking with each of you and interviewing you, and keep tuning into the show. There's lots of new people that are coming on here, and if you're considering wanting to come on the show, just shoot me an email at tpeters745@gmail.com, and I will get back to you.